Ham watched the sea, standing alone, until there was a great retiring wave. He seemed to leap up into it with a mighty bound, and the ship was gone.
Hello, welcome to Premiere Scene. I'm Claire Bueno, as all the stars will be in appearance for the premiere of The Invisible Woman.
Truly, Mr. Dickens, it is never so alive as when it is spoken by its author.
Thank you.
Mr. Fiennes, lovely to see you again. How are you this evening?
How are you? I'm good, how are you?
Very well, thank you very much. Now, watching the film, Dickens has such a lust for life and a vitality. Yeah. Was that something very important for you to portray in the film?
It's the thing that comes at you when you start to read about Dickens the man. That's the first thing that you are confronted with by biographers as great as Claire Tomalin, who wrote the book, is this man with this extraordinary life energy for work, for life, for family, for social engagement. He walked a lot. One of his great sort of passions was walking long hours all through London, through the countryside. He had a vigour that was sort of hard for us to comprehend, I think. And that's important to try and show, even though he's not sort of it's Nelly's film, but I think when he enters the film at the beginning, I hope that the audience gets a sense of that kind of vitality.
And with regards to your own craft, having now your second time as a director, how do you embrace the role of directing the sort of technical side of working with your director of photography and your editors?
Yeah,
Is that?
Listen, I feel I'm beginning. I've been lucky enough to direct these two films now, and I'm still got so much to learn. The sort of what I'm learning is how much there is to learn. You see, I mean. But Rob Hardy, who's the cinematographer, I thought it was him, but it wasn't. No, Rob Hardy, who's the DP, cinematographer on this, has a brilliant eye, and he sort of guided me. I mean, I offered up some ideas, rather inarticulately, and he sort of helped me shape the eye of the film, the look of the film. But we ended up, I believe, having a great rapport about this. I mean, for me, the composition of shots is really, really important. And the camera's relatively still, and I want the audience to. My hope is that the way the camera looks at the characters, we're encouraged to sort of go into them and to complement that with performances. Particularly Felicity, who gives a brilliant performance of interior life, what's going on inside people.
You are an admirer of my husband's work?
At the moment, I'm lost in Copperfield.
Nelly has read every chapter twice.
I am glad.
With regards to your character, was it interesting for you to play a woman that was able to reinvent herself, particularly in that period?
Well, I love that. That's what I loved about her. She remarried and then she pretended to be 12 years younger than she actually was. Never told her husband or her children. I think that's why I love Nelly. She's a real survivor.
And Nelly was Dickens' muse. So how much did you have to learn about Dickens to better inform your character, really?
How much did I work? Sorry,
how much did you have to read and research about Dickens to better inform your character to inspire him?
Well, I found Claire's biography on Dickens was amazing, and I mean, The Invisible Woman, her book, was a great resource because she makes them feel like real people. You know, when you read her books, you live with them. So they was sort of my main resource, really.
Every human creature is a profound secret to every other.
Until that secret is given to another, and then perhaps two human creatures may know each other.
But what was really beautiful about your writing was that the characters were written without bias.
Oh, good.
Was that, and with great respect, was that something that was important to you?
Yeah, I think it was. I mean, I think when you do a period drama, what you're trying to do is, you know, I think the expectation is it's going to be very heavy, and you know, people are going to speak in very kind of heightened language, and I think I wanted to make it feel as sort of immediate and as contemporary as possible, and certainly working with the director. Like Ralph, who also was going to act it. He was very good at working out when there was, you know, too much, when it was too much, and building in that restraint to the script. So it was. I just wanted it to feel real and intimate. That was my main, you know, the main aim with it, really.
And the women are also beautifully written as well, and they've got strength, haven't they? Was that also something that was important for
really
you to come across?
Yeah, really important. You know, as a woman getting older, it felt really important to portray such a kind of diverse group of women and such a diverse group of ages. So I love the character of the mother and I love the character of the Nelly, you know, so you've got sort of two women in very different age categories, and then Joanna Scanlan was so wonderful as the wife, and that was such a great thing to try and do. That yeah, it was very important. I find women are pretty central to my writing.
And with the relationship of working with Ralph, I believe the whole experience with him was quite unique for working with
I think it really was. I think most of the time, directors aren't as animated. You're often having to pull it out of them. And with Ralph, he was just brilliant at, he wasn't just sitting down, writing at a laptop. He would leap up and perform it for you. So, not many writers get that opportunity to get their work brought to life. So that was fantastic.
Why are you up so early?
I must go to London.
Mr. Dickens, why didn't you tell us you were coming?
A last-minute impulse.
Now, with regards to the book, this is a story really about a woman who was able to reinvent herself, wasn't
That's
it?
right.
Really,
That's the crux of the story. Absolutely, yes.
And what was it about wanting to investigate into that made it such a fascinating story for you to write the novel for?
Well, it wasn't a novel I wrote, it was a biography, it's not fiction. The film is, if you like, fiction, but my book wasn't. Well, I greatly admired Dickens, I was a great reader of Dickens, so I was very interested in Dickens, I was interested in his life, and discovering that there was this element in his life which hadn't been very much explored, seemed to me he was crying out to be written about, crying out to be explored. So I did a lot of research, a lot of looking up the theatrical background of Nelly. She was on the stage when she was 2, so were her sisters, so was her mother. They would go back to a family of strolling players. And all that, of course, fascinated Dickens, because Dickens adored the theatre. There seemed to be, and then her discovering how she reinvented herself after Dickens's death, took 10 years off her age. It was such a bold thing to do.
Particularly back then as well.
Yes, well, I think she sort of learnt from Dickens. She learnt how to deceive people in a way, because they had to hide and pretend. They lived together, but they were sort of not acknowledged. And I think that's fascinating. I think Dickens probably would have rather cheered if he'd known, Wilkie Collins also, who wrote all these sort of complicated stories about men and women. I think they'd have rather approved her. Of course, the film doesn't show what then happened, which was, in a way, she was always worried that her children would find out, and they never did until after she was dead.
So, what will you do with your winnings, Nelly?
I shall spend it all at once.
With regards to Catherine, watching your performance, she was a really dignified woman, wasn't she? Is that what attracted you to her?
Well, I think her story is one of a very difficult but actually quite familiar story. It's not something that many people aren't aware of, that you get cast over for a younger model, as it were. But what's different about Catherine is that she has to cope with the enormous public disgrace of having a letter written in the Times that protects her husband's mistress and actually says that she herself is now out in arrear. Sling your hook, Catherine. That is just a vile position to be in, and I think I kind of empathised with that, and I wanted to help tell the story. I mean, it's a wonderful book, and I wanted to tell the story of the whole book and do whatever part I could possibly play within that.
What we talked about before was the breakdown of the marriage with Catherine and Charles, and I just wondered how much you and Ralph worked together, because I don't know how well documented that breakdown of the marriage is, to build that backstory between you, really.
Well, we took some key elements, and we sort of said, well, what would their marriage have been like, and concluded really that there was the effect of having 10 children on a body, on your physical body and on your mind, is quite considerable, and that's really the essence of, by the point that we meet this marriage, it's been destroyed by the reproductive system, and today we take entirely for granted that contraception is a possibility. But in those days, it wasn't. And, if your husband wanted to have sex with you, you had to have sex with him. And that might lead to a pregnancy. And that's clearly what happened over and over with these two. So I think you're left to you're left almost with a kind of the rubble underneath whatever might have been there in the original relationship.
My daughter's a fine young woman. I'm anxious for her future.
If I may be of assistance in any way.
It must have been a beautiful opportunity to be a part of this story.
It was wonderful, yeah. I mean, it's such a wonderful cast, and a great story based on a great book by Claire. And I mean, all of the performances in it are just amazing. I mean, Joanna Scanlan, who plays Catherine Dickens, is just amazing.
She plays with real sensitivity.
Yeah, and of course Ralph and Felicity and Tom and Christian, yeah.
Is it interesting as well for you working with a director who's also an actor, because he totally gets where you're coming from?
I think so, yeah. I mean, I've worked with actor-directors before, and I think the thing they often have is it's sort of, they're fastidious about getting it right, but they're very nurturing as well, and they're very enabling, and you know, which is
encouraging when you need to be.
Absolutely, and yeah.
Know where to press the right buttons.
Yeah, yeah.
Do you love him?
He's married.
That has not stopped him falling in love with you.
Ralph strikes me as somebody who would be a great person to collaborate with. Is that something that you experience?
100%, absolutely. He's a great director because he's very open to ideas and very inclusive of your ideas, but he's also very clear about what he wants, and I can't imagine how difficult it must be to straddle the divide between those two things, because they're in a sense they're two opposing things, but you do really need the direction. You need someone with a clear vision, but you also want the freedom to bring your own artistic ideas to it, and Ralph is brilliant at that.
And with regards to where you're first brought into the process, do you read the script, or are you brought in much further down when they've actually had principal photography?
Well, it's very different on every film. I would say most often you're brought in after principal photography. They're somewhere in the edit, early on in the edit, or maybe even as far as the director's cut. But when you have an ongoing relationship with a director, and I've had it a few times in my life, but the first time was with Matthew Vaughn on Layer Cake and Stardust, and again, a great relationship like that has been with Ralph. I did Coriolanus, and then we did The Invisible Woman, and very early on, Ralph gave me the book, looked at early versions of the script, and in fact, there was a lot of music that's in the film. The boys who play in the orchestra, on camera. I was involved in picking those boys and in writing the music that they had to play on camera, and also there are moments when Ralph set the piano and piano moments in the film, and all of that had to be written and rehearsed and worked with the actors. I was on set doing all of that, so it was really fun.
More gossip in the London Diary? You must deny it. You cannot keep her a secret.
Yes, I can.
Was it interesting for you as well to see how Nelly actually reinvented herself? I mean, there are two parts to this story, isn't there?
Really? Yeah, no, it's... You know, and actually, I mean, it was even more complicated than we really get into in the film. I mean, she really did, you know, she lied about her age. I mean, she pretended she was 8 years younger than she was when she re-wed. And it was... so, I mean, you know, in a film you can only do so much. You can't go into all of the truth of it, but it was an extraordinary story about how she sort of, you know, reinvented herself and actually went on, which is actually wonderful, that she actually did have a family and that she did actually have a more, I guess, you know, fulfilled life in the classical sense of things.
He cannot marry me.
No, he cannot.
There is an insanity to his behavior.
You have been in every line I have ever read. You are part of my existence. To the last hour of my life, you remain part of my character.
Everyone has their secret, and this is ours.